Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Excessive. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Monday, September 9th, 2024. Excessive speed, excessive force, excessive action. Instead of leading off today's show with some sort of takeaways and recaps of week 1 of the NFL, we are leading off with a most unfortunate incident that happened where I used to work for a decade. Used to be Pro Player Stadium. Now it's called Hard Rock Stadium. The Miami Dolphins play their home games there. And right before kickoff, like 3 hours, as players and fans were making their way to the stadium, we get word and we see amateur video of Tyreek Hill being detained, handcuffed, and put to the ground by at least 4 Miami-Dade police officers. It was surreal watching it, watching the videos. It happened in a place right off the Turnpike extension in Miami, coming from the north, the exact route that I took every single day to work, the exact place where I had been stopped before for excessive speed. It is easy to have excessive speed there when you are getting to the game before the game starts. There are tons of police in that area right off the Turnpike getting ready for the Dolphins game or even a Marlins game where it's the Miami-Dade police who are outside of the stadium police. They're waiting right by the parking lots. They're waiting when you go another quarter of a mile down the road and make a right turn on a road called Ives Dairy. There are police on the other side of the stadium. It is heavily policed. They are looking to make sure there's crowd control. When we meet with the police before every homestand, before every game, our focus is on, no matter what the attendance is going to be, you may find this hard to believe, but sometimes we did have 50,000 people. Of course, those are playoff games, but it doesn't matter. But the focus, even with 6,000 people, is crowd control, crowd safety. Period. What happened to Tyreek Hill is so beyond the pale of what we prepare for pre-game, pre-homestand. There is no scenario under which we wanted any of our fans, forget players for a minute, any of our fans to be handcuffed and thrown to the ground because of speeding. More may come out. Let's say Tyreek Hill, he says he didn't. Excessive foul language. Campbell, another one of the players who came to help, was handcuffed because of disobeying an order of an officer. Do you know the police also had a roster? I don't believe, Coca, that we did a Facebook back then, though looking back, that would have been smart. We certainly did make sure that the police had rosters. Who are the players? Who are the executives who are coming to every game? Not so we could break the law, not so we could get speed and put people in danger, but so the police would be aware of what was happening. When you see a car come and you saw it was a nice sports car, pulled over, there's Tyreek Hill. Is it possible the police did not know who Tyreek Hill was? Tyreek Hill himself said so. What if I hadn't been Tyreek Hill? What if people hadn't come to my defense? I think we all know what the answer would have been. When you look at that video, look at the number of police around. If you're watching on Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, you've got the polices. There are a lot of them on motorcycles, which you can see to the right, and you see the motorcycle helmets. They are there waiting. You see all the fans who are coming to the game. That's the traffic right there. There's a parking lot just 50 feet to the left of this video. That's not where the players pull in. That's where fans pull in. The players have to go to the end of that block and make a right turn. Tyreek Hill is down. Then they lift him up. He's still handcuffed. There is no scenario, and I've been thinking about it only because I envision myself there or my players. This is where we played from 02 to 12 before going to downtown Miami. What pre-game meeting would involve that sort of treatment? None. We don't want anyone treated that way. We would have the conversations about what we would try to do to make sure that fan conduct would not in any way endanger anyone, but also would not become the story. Tyreek Hill played yesterday. The Dolphins have excessive speed. They came back and beat the Jaguars. I didn't understand why they were calling him the Jaguars, the commentator. I think it was Trent Green. Jaguars? I thought it was the Jaguars. 17-14. Hill had about 130 yards. He scored a TD and then did a celebration that is exactly what Roger Goodell does not want to see, where Tyreek put his hands behind his back as though he were being handcuffed. The NFL, much like the NBA after Malice at the Palace, they are very careful with their image. They do not want any sort of association. Neither do their sponsors. And what we saw yesterday with Tyreek Hill, we saw videos of fans fighting. We saw videos of jerseys being burned. I think Sarah, by the way, went viral for the video she took of the Daniel Jones jersey being burned. I don't know if the jersey needs to be burned, Sarah. I would say that the jersey needs to be excommunicated, and somehow the Giants need to realize that Daniel Jones, you wasted that money and move along. It's time to tank for Tua. During the course of the game, every pregame show had to deal with the Tyreek Hill situation. They did it nimbly. The Miami-Dade Police Department had to come up with a statement immediately. And the immediate statement is that they were aware of it and they're going to look into it. Then during the game, they had another statement which said, we're launching an internal affairs investigation, thoroughly reviewing it. It's page 2 of the playbook. And then one of the officers involved is placed on administrative duties. That's code word for we've got to put the blame on somebody with the police because there's no way we could possibly look worse. People in Miami-Dade, whether it's the mayor or county commissioners, for sure spoke to the police department and the head of the police department in Miami-Dade and said, this is a national embarrassment. Do something right now. And the first thing that anyone would think of is, all right, we'll just suspend the cop. Which one? They chose the one who actually had him on the ground. Did they choose the one who pulled him over? Did they choose the one who didn't recognize who he was, who didn't believe who he was? Did they look at all the body cam footage before they put one of the cops, just one, on administrative leave? When you quickly react to a situation that has gone viral against you, the odds are you're going to have reacted incorrectly. The push from your PR people to make a decision quickly, when you're the business person, you've got to resist that temptation. You have to, because the second apology, the third, the second, fourth statement, that's when all the problems come. Tyreek Hill treated this as well as can be expected. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, was on the spot, ready to talk to ESPN, ready to give quotes about the investigation. There could be lawyers. It is a disgrace. All of the things that you'd expect your agent to say. The agent got to Tyreek Hill in time to talk about what to say post-game, and he did. I still don't know what happened, but I want to use the platform to say, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? Drew Rosenhaus did a great job of getting Tyreek prepared. Tyreek did a great job of getting Tyreek prepared, not just for the game, but for the post-game. This story is not going to go away anytime soon, and Roger Goodell knows it. There is going to be consequences to it. At some point, we're going to find out more about the stop, how exactly it happened, why it happened, and what happened during it. All of that news overshadowed the other storylines from week one. The fact that there were games that counted. How about Dak Prescott signing his contract right before week one? That really made me upset, Coca. You know, I take the wait to sees very seriously. I don't want to lose any of them. In August 2024, I said that Dak Prescott will not sign before game one. I went through all the quotes of Jerry Jones, which was the roadmap to Jerry Jones not offering Dak Prescott a contract and them not coming to terms before game one. Wouldn't you know it? 2 hours before game one, the announcement comes that Dak Prescott not only has signed a new deal, 4 years, $240 million, not only has the biggest signing bonus now in history. Jerry Jones cut him an $80 million signing bonus. Thanks for signing, Dak. Here's 80 large. That's bigger than Jordan Love's 75. That was the record. You got yourself the record, Dak. All right, Jerry, how about this? How about 240 for 4? $60 million a year. Well, that'd be a record, except average per year. Burrow gets more. But if you do 60 times 4 is 240, and we guarantee 231 of that money, would that be a record? What did Deshaun Watson get fully guaranteed? I think it was 230, wasn't it? The ceiling that I said would not be broken. The brown ceiling of dread. The irony of Dak Prescott getting more money than Deshaun Watson by $1 million in a game that they were playing against Deshaun Watson. The irony of the Cowboys winning, we'll get to that in our pick of the day, which won yesterday. The irony of Deshaun Watson looking like Daniel Jones, not Dak Prescott, is not lost on me. Dak Prescott getting everything he could have wanted right before game one, as though he had all the leverage. That's the business side of this story that interests me greatly. What exactly leverage do you think Dak Prescott had? Dak Prescott would have been a full free agent. No franchise tag, no nothing. At the end of the year, has a good year, stays healthy, can go anywhere he wants. Anywhere. Pick the team. Everybody's looking for quarterbacks. If you're good, everyone's going to want you. If you had a good year, Jerry Jones, if you win, he may want to pay you even more. Of course, on the other hand, Dak Prescott knows that he's never done anything in the postseason. Ever. That being a regular season winner, that's not what you ought to be paid for. The way you break records is you are a winner. And regular season wins don't matter. Where's the jewelry? Where is the conference championship appearances? Jerry Jones, in my mind, had the ability and the leverage to follow up on all of his statements throughout the year, all of the positioning that he was doing. And I'm wondering what made him cave, because make no mistake, Jerry Jones caved. When you sign a player right before the season starts at some sort of self-imposed deadline that you've both had potentially, and then you make Dak Prescott the number one highest paid quarterback with the most guaranteed money and the highest signing bonus, do you agree that that's a cave? What changed from all off season? Did the GM, Jerry Jones, say to the owner, man, we're screwed. We better get this guy signed. GMs always want their players signed. Don't kid yourself. GMs are not extensions of ownership. GMs want the players happy, the players paid. It's not their money. Most GMs are that way. Wonder whether Jerry Jones, the GM, said to the owner, man, we just got to do it. Let's not have the distraction. We got everyone else done. Why do you want Dak to be feeling as though we don't love him? We love him. Or do you think Jerry Jones, the owner, said to Jerry Jones, the GM, listen, dude, we're not starting the season with our quarterback unsigned and risking the possibility of losing him next year? In which case, Jerry Jones, the GM, should have said to the owner, why now? Did you sleep? Were you nervous? Tough flight to Cleveland? This is literally hours before the season started. Dak's quotes were, I want to be a Cowboy. I wanted to stay a Cowboy, and it got done. Of course it got done, because you broke the record. Don't tell me, Dak, that you wanted to be a Cowboy, you wanted to stay a Cowboy and got it done. I'm not buying it. Not buying it at all. Congrats, though, Dak. Good win for nothing personal pick of the day. During that Cowboys game against the Browns, everyone was listening volume up. Check out Tom Brady. Everyone wrote a review. All the people in media are writing reviews of Tom Brady's performance. Give Tom Brady credit. I read, Coca, is it possible that he got Kevin Burkhardt to do a full slate of games from start to finish as rehearsal? Just so I can be clear, does that mean that they did 17 full games? Just thinking about that. 3 hours. It's 51 hours of rehearsal. Seems like a good number with your partner. Seems very nice of Kevin Burkhardt to do that. Had good hair. Was excited for all the in-studio shots that they did during the game. I cringed when Tom Brady gave the fist bump that wasn't returned by Pereira, the referee in the booth. I was wondering why Brady was not able to identify certain players at certain times. And I realized that I was being overly critical of Tom Brady because he came in as the de facto number one analyst with not one game. Not one game of experience. Was I cringing because he got $375 million for 10 years to be an ambassador of Fox and the number one analyst? Was I cringing because he's going to be the owner of the Raiders and he can't do his job properly? Or was I cringing because I listened to Olsen call his game with Joe Davis, the World Series play-by-play guy? And he's simply fantastic. Were my expectations too high? And the answer is they were. If Tom Brady were an ordinary first-time analyst, I would have listened to the game and I would have said to myself, not great, not terrible, totally understand why he's on the fifth game, being seen in 3 different markets, and that's it in the country. But he's got some potential. Tom Brady doesn't get the benefit of that doubt, and I'm not asking you to feel sorry for Tom Brady, but I'm asking you to think about how you view Tom Brady as an analyst, how all of these different media critics are viewing him as an analyst. It is a prism that is simply not fair. It's the lead story in a normal weekend. Of course, not this weekend. Every year there's an upset week 1. I'm asked to do survivor pools. Do you know that I lost my survivor pool week 1 for the 3rd year in a row? Now, a lot of the country did, so I don't feel as badly. Though I do feel as badly because when I chose the game, I didn't have the stats, and I had the Bengals winning. They didn't. I'm done. Next year, I'm not going to do the survivor pool. I'm just going to give the guy $20 and say I'm not doing a pick. Every time I do these survivor pools, I think back to my time with the Marlins. And I've told you this before, but so many of you are new to the show. Really, the only fight I ever had with Jose Fernandez was over the survivor pool, where I would buy 10 entries and I would choose 5 games and take both sides and guarantee to get to week 2 with 5 different slots still available. And then I would do both sides of 2 games with 4 of my 5, guaranteed to have 2 at week 3. He thought that was cheating. I thought it was planning. For this survivor pool, I've only done 1 now that I'm back to being just the host of Nothing Personal. Not just, what a terrible word. I'm lucky to be the host of Nothing Personal. I did 1 pick. Lost it. What are the other big things that happened this weekend? How long ago does the Brazil game feel? The Friday night game. Quite a few things happened. We previewed the Brazil game, and one of you had a question about it that I wanted to address.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. Samson's a character from Half-Baked. Get in there. Watch Half-Baked, not the second one, the first Half-Baked. Character named Samson. People want to talk to him. Get into my X at David P. Samson. DMs are open, and I see many of them, not all of them. Instagram, David Samson Podcast. You can email me, davidsamsonpodcast.com. You can email me. Thank you, by the way. Coca, the horse hockey stuff is still selling well. We're almost ready for holiday merch. It's almost the holidays? Is that even possible? Anyway, here was a question one of you asked. David, how do non-football or baseball stadiums get retrofitted for a game? After the Brazil game, players were complaining about the slippery field. How can this be avoided? I would assume this question comes from a Packers fan. I would assume that this fan is despondent beyond repair that Jordan Love got hurt at the end of that game. Sprained his MCL. He's out 3 to 6 weeks. Nightmare. Took his $75 million signing bonus, his new contract, and then sprained his MCL. He didn't do it on purpose. It looked like several of the players on that field in Sao Paulo. That's the game that we previewed last week where there were security issues. Players didn't want to go. And then I told you tons of listeners from Brazil were contacting me saying, hey, Brazil is safer than Philly. And I said, likely. I don't think anyone said Brazil is safer than Miami Gardens, but maybe. I think I saw more in-stadium fights in the U.S. games this weekend than I saw in Sao Paulo. Be that as it may, we're watching the game, Eagles, Packers, and it did look like Paul Simon had written the music to this game. People were sliding away. When you have a game, MLB does this really well, where they convert stadiums into baseball fields. It's way harder to do that, to go from football to baseball, soccer to baseball, than it is to go from soccer to football or football to soccer. Just imagine the shape of the field and you'll answer that question. It's not months, it's years that you plan ahead. MLB has a traveling groundskeeper, a guy in charge of off-site fields. Spends a ton of time. They map it out. They use architects. They use contractors. It requires moving dirt. It requires bringing in sod. And the problem with every temporary field is that there is no way to get it to stick in time for the game because you can't get it to look good and be functional. There are secrets that we would use at Pro Player, secrets that we would use at Marlins Park. All you had to do is go to Walmart and buy a spray paint can that's green. Yes, it's true. If you would look at some baseballs that were hit to the outfield every once in a while, they'd be put out of play because they had some green paint on them. When you've got some grass that's brown or a little field that looks dirty where the dirt is showing, try to cover it up. Sometimes you put down some sod, try to staple it down. We didn't like doing that in baseball because if you do that, then if a ball hits a seam, all of a sudden it can jump up at a fielder or it can go travel a different path, and you could end up with an error or you're getting an extra base, giving an extra base. So there are a bunch of tricks of the trade. One of the things that the leagues test for is slippery, because what the league does is they advise the players prior to the game when operations people meet with each team, which they do. Here's how the field is playing. And the players have different spikes depending on the field conditions. When you go inside a clubhouse and you look inside a player's locker, there are stacks of shoes. Yes, they're all free, but they're all meant for different types of fields, different types of conditions, different types of weather. And the conversation is had before the game. Sometimes during pregame warmups, which is why we have the teams do pregame warmups, the players come in and say, hey, that was less slippery than I thought or more slippery than I thought, and they change shoes accordingly. Sometimes during a game, it's playing a way that they didn't expect it to play during warmups. They come in and change shoes. Standard operating procedure. The way that you retrofit a stadium does not account for the issue of the slippery field. They're totally unrelated. Retrofitting is the dimensions. It's making sure it's a regulation field that's approved by both the union and management, no matter the sport. It's looking at sight lines. The playing field condition is a specialty, also has union involvement, but everybody knows that when you are playing these one-off games, that you are going to have field problems. It's the biggest thing the union says at the negotiating table, and that is why the players get paid more to travel internationally. Longer flight, I guess, still sleepers, more time zone changes, although under that theory, then going to Brazil should not have been a huge extra payment for either the Packers or the Eagles, though it's a brutal flight. It's so long. And when you fly that long and don't change time zones except 1 hour or 2 hours, brutal. So the extra comp is for the inconvenience of it all, being away from your family, giving up a home game. But it's all done with the knowledge that the field is going to stink. And now Jordan Love is injured. I didn't see the Packers necessarily blame the field, but it's pretty hard not to. What else were people upset about? People were upset, Coca, that it was game 1 of the season. Who was upset about that? I think that people would get upset. Were like, what if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in game 1 of the season, but on a regulation field? People upset always that the Eagles were losing a home game. I don't know. We were never, do you know, it never comes up. You know, it's funny, Coke, you're making me think about this. When we go through the schedule of international games, it actually never comes up. Hey, we should do this in June or July, not in April. Hey, we should do this in week 7 instead of week 1. Never comes up. Here's what does come up. Excuse me, all of the NFL broadcasting partners. What would you say to a Friday opener in Brazil? Wait, you mean we could exclusively stream it on Peacock? Hold on. And it would be in Brazil with the Packers and the Eagles? Hold on one second. Oh, I think we'd give you like an incremental $100 million for that. Oh, okay, deal. It never comes up. Oh, no, we don't want to do week 1. All right, when we come back, I got to tell you about my weekend. And then we are going to talk MLB. We are so close to playoffs. When it gets to be 9-9-2-4, I mean, how quick is 10-9-2-4 going to be? And the playoffs start before that. We are under a month from playoff baseball. And we're going to talk about Nicole Kidman. All when Nothing Personal returns after this. Welcome back. Hope you all had a good weekend. I, for one, was overwhelmed by the weekend. week one of the NFL is always overwhelming because you realize that I want to watch games, but I want to watch the U.S. Open, but I want to watch baseball, but I'd like to be outside. I'd like to go running. Didn't do it. I'd like to clean up. Did do it. But of course, it doesn't matter what week it is. You can bet your bippy I'm watching content because I'm reviewing something for you every day. We are here at 8 a.m. live on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. If you're listening to this, which over 75% of you are listening only, too bad you're missing the blazer. Hit subscribe on the YouTube button. Just go to YouTube and hit subscribe, even if you don't have YouTube, which you probably do. But I do thank you for listening because that matters too. So I sat down and binged The Perfect Couple. And when I say binged, I don't know what your definition of binge is. My definition of binge is when nothing happens from the beginning of episode 1 to the end of the final episode 6. You don't have dinner. You don't have lunch. You don't go for a run. You don't use the bathroom. You do nothing. You sit there. It's as though you're watching Gandhi. That's what I did with The Perfect Couple. Couldn't stop, wouldn't stop. The Perfect Couple with Nicole Kidman, Liev Schreiber, Bono's daughter. She's one credit away from not being called that anymore because she was so good. The girl from White Lotus, Megan, I think is her name. The guy from Sing Street, the older brother in Sing Street, he was in this. It's based on a best-selling book about a family in Nantucket, sort of like the Wedding Crashers family, except there was a dead body. So it starts off sort of like White Lotus. It ends up with families fighting over money. Eve Hewson, thank you, Coca. It is time that people knew her name. I should know her name. But it throws me off because I don't look at Bono as Bono Hewson. So they combined all of these successful concepts. Succession, White Lotus is in there. Nicole Kidman makes me think of the Big Little Lies and all the other miniseries that she does now. She plays a writer, matriarch of a family. And here's what The Perfect Couple is. It's a pint of ice cream after a breakup. It's the last 40 M&Ms when you've had the first 60. You're almost positive that you shouldn't be doing what you're doing and that you'll regret it after, but you simply can't stop. That's me. I was an addict. The Perfect Couple. Do I want you to spend 6 hours of your life? Yeah, you know why? Because it feels so good when you're doing it. And then when you're done, you're like, oh, that was a lot of time. But it sort of felt good, but my tummy really hurts. Not like the good hurt when you're full from a great meal, but the other kind of hurt when you've had so much junk food and you're like, oh, I'll get through it. I'll get through it. Wow, I'm wired. That's The Perfect Couple. We've got a perfect couple happening in the National League. The Mets and Braves are a perfect couple because they're two of the 4 teams that I can't stand the most. That's just National League East. A lifetime of National League East speaking. When you've been with the Expos and the Marlins, obviously the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves are teams that you do not like. Period. Hard to root for. You can love some of the players on the teams, which I do. Hard to root for. The Mets and Braves are now tied for the final wild card spot, which is amazingly cool for Mets fans. Because as negative as you've been, and of course, when I say you, I only mean Coca. As negative as you've been, you are in September having recovered from a horrific start, and you control your destiny to play in October. And once you get to October, hey, you never know. They've climbed the mountain. I don't think there's a risk, even though they lost yesterday after having won 9 in a row. It's not like a basketball game where you're down 20, you come all the way back, and you get too tired and lose by 7. It happens in all sports. It doesn't happen as much in baseball, actually. If you're down 9, generally, if you can come back, you come back. You're okay to score again. But don't you ever get that feeling in basketball when you're down 20 and you work all that hard to go on that run and you're like, it's the other team's turn to have a run. It's a game of runs. I don't view the baseball playoffs as that. All the effort the Mets have made to climb out of the hole. It's like the Astros who climbed out of the Mariners' hole. Mariners had a 10-game lead. Astros climbed out of it, took over control, and will ride it all the way to the end. Notwithstanding the fact that Justin Verlander had a terrible start yesterday. So bad. They got their butts kicked by the D-backs. So bad. But anyway, what's exciting about the Mets is that you're looking at the possibility of Lindor winning the MVP over Shohei Ohtani. Not going to happen. You're looking at the Mets fulfilling Stephen Cohn's dream of winning a World Series in his first 5 years. Not going to happen. But you get to look at a team that trades away Scherzer and DeGrom, pays for them to go away. They get hurt. They're just beginning to play now for the Rangers, who are the reigning World Series champions, who are not going to make the playoffs because it's impossible to repeat in this sport. Don't run it back with the same players. It's not going to work. You have a rotation where you signed Luis Severino and said, man, is there a chance? Meanwhile, the Mets are now in position to do it. Pay attention to these dates. September 24th to September 26th, 15 days from today. The Mets and Braves play a 3-game series. The Mets and Braves, by definition, will not have a tied season series. That is the first tiebreaker if the Mets and Braves finish tied for the last playoff spot. The winner of the Mets-Braves series in Atlanta, September 24th to 26th, should they end up tied at the end of the season, which is only a week later, the winner of that series goes to the playoffs. A reminder, there is no more Game 163. We've had some really exciting Game 163s. I love Game 163s, but those got moved away when an extra round 2 out of 3 was added. Remember, it's the wild card round, 2 out of 3. It's going to be pretty exciting. You know what we never did? We never moved a starter to the bullpen without telling him. I wouldn't allow that. Neither would our GMs. You tell players, hey, you're starting. Hey, you're in the bullpen. Hey, you got to be available today in the bullpen. Hey, you're not making your next start, so therefore we're going to have you go to the bullpen. Why? Because starters don't go to the bullpen unless they're told to go to the bullpen. Because I'm being literal. Going to the bullpen means during games you sit in the bullpen. You walk through the outfield or you walk behind where the fans are and you go to the bullpen. Starting pitchers who are not starting that particular game, meaning in between starts, they don't go to the bullpen. They're in the dugout. Relievers are in the bullpen. Even if they're not available, they go to the bullpen. A starter would not go to the bullpen unless told, hey, you got to go to the bullpen. The Yankees have decided that Nestor Cortez ought to be in the bullpen. So I guess that they demoted him from the rotation, put him in the bullpen, and he was livid. If I am Brian Cashman, I'm more livid. Cortez said, obviously, I was upset. I felt like I've been amongst all the starters, the workhorse here. Once Cole went down, they picked me to be the opening day starter. Nestor, let me give you a hint. Opening day, if you're not the experienced one and you're not the one who gets the opening day nod because of your pedigree, then here's a note. If you earn it only because of an injury to the one who would be the natural and absolute opening day starter, you are not looked at as an opening day starter. You're starting game 1. But anyway, I don't want to quibble. Nestor did start opening day when Cole was hurt. That is true. And he says it. He said, I had to switch my routine. Aaron Boone, of course, came to the rescue of Nestor, saying, I have no problem with his comments, saying, I don't need everyone to be happy with everything. This is Aaron Boone talking? There comes a time when you've got to make a difficult decision, and then it's on all of us and the players to go out there and do your job and be a pro. I'm sorry. Is Aaron Boone the one who's talking publicly about making the decision to move Nestor Cortez to the bullpen? Spoiler alert, Aaron Boone didn't make that decision. That's number one. Number two, when he's speaking about it, why are we allowing a player to make a comment that is so selfish in nature? You're upset about something we're doing. You don't like we're hitting the lineup. You don't like the way we're using you, pitcher, relief, starting. Walk into my office. Talk to me. There's absolutely no reason to go public with this. None. I can't even believe that he did it that way. The fact that the Yankees are defending him, trying to make it as though everything is butterflies, rainbows, and unicorns, so that the opponents or that the fan base all assumes, oh, this is standard. Inside that clubhouse, there's nothing standard going on at all. When you've got players sniping about their roles, sniping publicly about their roles, that's only one step above the worst poison that a clubhouse has, which is players doing that off the record. That's the worst. The second worst is players doing it on the record. I don't know if I'm Cashman. I'm getting myself down to the clubhouse and I'm saying, I'm sorry. Did I miss something here? I'm just curious. Are we in a position? We've won 82 games. We're sort of tied with the Orioles. I'm sorry. Do we have any rings recently? I'm just curious. Have we been to the World Series recently? It could be. I could be wrong. I may have forgotten. I'm sorry, Nestor. What have you exactly accomplished? Hold on. Let me go to Baseball Reference. I'll let you know. In the meantime, while I check for your accomplishments, could you do me a favor and go pitch? I'm so excited for the rest of this baseball season. There's so much to follow as we head into the home stretch here. We'll cover it for you because we're here every day. You know what else we do every day? We make picks. Nothing personal pick of the day. I was furious on Friday when Skubal and the Tigers lost to the A's. Skubal pitched great. It's exactly what we projected it would happen. And the A's beat him in 13 innings. Ugh. But of course, Friday ended well when I had the Packers +2. And not only did I have to deal with the slippery turf, Jordan Love getting hurt, guys wearing green, me worried about security. On top of that, for no reason, on top of that, I had to watch the Eagles win by 5. That's a terrible loss. Just terrible. I don't know if you remember that game. It was so long ago, but the Packers had every opportunity to at least push that game and gave up that huge drive at the end. Could not get a stop. Is anything more frustrating when you're chasing points in a bet and you can't get the damn ball back? That's the second most frustrating. The first most frustrating thing, would you all agree? I'm a little off the subject here, Coco. Would you all agree the number one most frustrating thing in a football wager is when you've got the over and you are one score away from the over and the team is on the 1 yard line going to score, and instead they take a knee and the clock runs out because of poor timeout management by the other team when they're not willing to trade 5 yards for 30 seconds on the clock? I'm sorry. I'm going to say it every year. I've told you I'm going to do it every year, and I'm not going to stop. Every year I'm going to do it. Who trades early timeouts for 5 yards? What is wrong with you? Of course, things got better. They got better on Sunday. We had 2 picks Sunday. We had the Cowboys +2.5 over the Browns. The game went off. We did that pick on Friday. By the time the game happened, the Browns were 2-point favorites over the Cowboys. I can't exactly figure out why. I assumed it was a mistake and that the Cowboys were -2.5 over the Browns. I guess there's people who still think Deshaun Watson's good. I don't know who those people are. Well, yes, you can have Myles Garrett, the defensive player of the year. I think what the Cowboys showed very clearly is we can run plays where Myles Garrett is less effective and then win big. So that was a win. Yesterday also was Corbin Day. What a busy weekend. Did you watch how Corbin did against the Pirates? NG. We're back, baby. Pirates over Corbin. So we ended up going 2-2. We're 118 and 123. I got 2 games for you tonight. Let's first talk the baseball game. We've got the Orioles as underdogs. When you can get an 82-win team on September 9th as an underdog against a team that is not going to make the playoffs, even though it's not one of their better pitchers pitching, you take the plus 102. Orioles plus 102 over the Red Sox. Tonight is the night. Tonight's the night. Aaron Rodgers returns. I've been looking everywhere. DraftKings. It's 10:45 in the morning if you're watching this on the DraftKings network. I'm yelling out, where is the over-under on the number of snaps played this season by Aaron Rodgers? I will bet you $1, Mortimer, that the over-under is higher than 4 were it to be a market. I assume we can find a market for anything. Aaron Rodgers makes his long-awaited return as the Jets face the Niners. Hey, Coca, is there an update on McCaffrey? Is he still listed as questionable? Has he been upgraded to probable? Downgraded to doubtful? I love the injury report. It's all about these picks of the day. The line moved again. It's now 4.5 since we put the show together. Niners 4.5 over the Jets. Does that mean McCaffrey's playing? Does that mean that Rodgers is going to go 3 snaps? How badly will Jets fans snap? I'm trying to picture Stu Gotts all excited for the Jets game, the feeling that this is finally their year with a 44-year-old Iwaneska inhaling quarterback whose interest in football is exceeded by his interest in just about everything else. His knowledge of football exceeded by almost nothing else. We're taking the Niners. I'm just not a Jets guy. I'm not a believer that Aaron Rodgers comes back and he's the quarterback. The problem is, have you ever not seen one of your favorite movie stars in a long time? And you've seen them in the movies that they were in, but then you see them current day and you're like, oh, I didn't have you aging like that because in my head, you were still in the 1980s St. Elmo's Fire. Darn, I got that wrong. Do you think Jets fans are doing that with Aaron Rodgers and that they're thinking back to at his height with the Packers? It's so easy to do that. Owners do that all the time. Side note, owners do that all the time. I'm going to do a wait to see right now. Wait to see when I tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. We're going to do a wait to see about Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to give you an over-under on the number of games started by Aaron Rodgers. You'd agree 17 would be a full season. I'm giving you an over-under of 13 games. And I'm taking the under. Over-under Aaron Rodgers, 13 games. David says under. Before we leave tonight, I wanted to give a shout-out to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is the team on Saturday. I don't know if you saw this, but if you didn't, you were sleeping. Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame in Notre Dame in an upset, the likes of which you don't see very often, if ever. And there was all sorts of talk about the fact that Northern Illinois was paid money, $1.4 million, to go to Notre Dame and play. And then Northern Illinois beat them. So let me just explain how this works. Notre Dame is looking for patsies. They're willing to pay patsies to come and get rolled because they get the revenue from the TV. They get the revenue from the home game. They are looking for, it's like in high school when you plan your homecoming weekend and you make sure you schedule a team that you're going to rock. Northern Illinois is one of many teams who markets itself as, hey, we're here to be your patsy. No problem. Pay us money, pay our expenses, give us profit. We'll use it as our operating budget to help buttress other sports at our school, and we'll come lose by 50. No problem. Happy to do it. Meanwhile, inside the huddle, the football coach says, boys, they're paying us to go to Notre Dame and South Bend because that's how bad we are. You know what we should do? Let's try to shove it right up their leprechauns. Let's just see if we have a chance to do something, the unthinkable. Because guess what? Not only can we win the game, but also we get to keep the money. My thought would be, if I'm offering someone to come play me who I'm trying to beat, my contract is very simple. I'll pay you to come, but you only get paid if you lose. Now that would be one way to do It's Just Business. Northern Illinois showed Notre Dame that it's nothing personal.